The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about never underestimating the power of consistency. That's right. Today, I am on here sharing a very special episode, and it's all about launching my podcast, Habit-Based Lifestyle, the one that you are listening to right now, right here in this moment, 2 years ago to the date. And I think about, having this podcast and not really having any idea of what I was doing outside of just sharing simple things I was going through with my journey, wanting to help people, but more than anything, just wanting to get very clear on my voice, my message, and just really being able to put it out in the marketplace. Now, looking back on this, launching a podcast is a very ego-driven move, and really it's just about like, hey, are people going to listen to what I have to say? And that was like one of the biggest questions I had, to ask myself nearly 2 years ago, or is there really going to be people that listens to me? And as I sit here today and kind of think about, man, like what made me want to do that? What made me really think about it? And I think about the time, it was like everybody's saying, dude, launch a podcast, and now, I mean, there's so many podcasts that, if you think about 2 years ago, like what were you doing 2 years ago to this date? I was celebrating me and my family's first year on Christmas. Obviously there was, no coronavirus 2 years ago. But life just was a lot different then. And, here we are 2 years later, 275 podcasts later. And I think back to some of the episodes that I got to interview some really cool people, and really get to know people. And in doing that, I got to learn a lot of things. Like imagine 275 episodes, how much that I got to learn from other people, how much I got to learn from even myself. Sometimes when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, man, when I could start listening to my own podcast, then that's when I really knew that other people would begin to listen. And that was a really cool moment for me. And I think it was probably around 40 or 50 episodes in. I couldn't listen to them at first. And now, and even about 50 episodes in, I could actually begin to listen to my own podcasts. And if you've never done one, you probably don't know what I mean, but it's kind of like listening to yourself talk or listening to your own videos and then actually taking something away from them that you're like, man, that was actually really good. And that's a really cool place to be in, is when you can actually learn from your own message and your own content. Because I know if I'm doing it and I'm going to be the most critical person of me, I'm going to be the most critical person of what I'm putting out there, way more than anybody else, that I know that. And so when I'm listening to it, I also know that other people are going to be getting some things from that. And so some of the episodes, that I think about, some of the people that I've gotten the opportunity to meet, to learn from, to share, time and space with. It's been actually really fun and enjoyable. And thinking about the next year going forward, I'm like, man, I have the opportunity to really learn a lot of things. And one cool thing, when you launch a podcast and you have people listening, it becomes popular. What's really cool is when people begin to reach out to you, that you're like, you know what? I never really turned anybody down. Probably in my first 2 years of doing this, I don't know if I've ever really turned anybody down, maybe just not responded or said, hey, maybe I don't know if it's a good fit. I just said maybe not right now. But, I think about some of the people that, I never really wanted to turn somebody down when it came to a podcast, because I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to come on, because I felt like I could learn something from every person that came on. Of course, I've had some amazing people. And it's also given me an opportunity to say, hey, these are some things that I really want to learn about myself. What if I just went out and interviewed people in these categories to really learn who I want to learn from, to learn who I may want to coach with, or to maybe learn who I want to upgrade my skill set with. My podcast has really given me the opportunity to do that. And that's probably been one of the funnest things for me, because I love biohacking. I love, different things of just getting better and constant improvement. And the more I can position myself and put myself in that place, the more I'm going to do that. And so, really thinking about Q1 of 2021, I really want to bring on, some spiritual leaders, in a kind of a diverse group, and really have them come on and share, not only because that's where I'm really working on growing, but also it gives other people an opportunity to kind of see an inside look at how I like to leverage, my podcast to be able to do that. And I always think of, like, you can learn things a lot quicker by going to experts in other industries than you can trying to figure it out on your own. So why not go to people who are already experts, or who have already been doing something a lot longer, have results, have a system that I could say, okay, if I understand this and learn this, this is where I could potentially be quicker. Now, I also think about episodes with my wife. We did a ton of episodes inside of that for couples. We've ran marriage boot camps. We've ran coaching. And so that's been a huge and amazing experience. I've had my kids on here, which was super fun. And then I've also had clients on here just talking about their results, what's changed for them in their life. And so that's been really fun to also do. The other thing is I could say, man, I've learned so much about myself in the process. And sometimes when I look back, I'm like, man, I was really good back then. What happened? And, there's been times where, in all honesty, I got bored, man, and I didn't want to do anything on podcasting for about a 90-day period. And it was like pulling teeth just to get me to try to do this. And so as I'm telling you this, don't ever think that all I was trying to do was just, launch podcast after podcast. I mean, there was times where I was like, I don't want to do anymore. So, I want to go through 6 lessons that I've really learned throughout this process, and just how they've really helped me. I think number 1, consistency is always king. So if you think about 2 years, 275 episodes, that's approximately 137.5 episodes a year. My goal was to do 3 a week, for a year. I think I came pretty close to that. There's 52 weeks in a year times 3. I mean, it's roughly 156 podcasts, which would have put me over the 300 mark. So I could have done a little bit better, but I think 275 is pretty solid way of being consistent. And these are quality podcasts. These are not just 5-10 minute episodes. A lot of these are, me interviewing people for 45 minutes to an hour. So if I was shooting 10-minute episodes, easily I could do over 300. But these are, quality episodes. I also like to do ones on my own, typically that are no more than about 20 minutes. That way you can listen to it on your way to work. But let's get back to the number one lesson. Consistency is always king. Like, number one thing that we have to understand is the king is what is above everything else. And so I really believe that consistency is above everything else when it comes to your results, and consistency is always above everything else. So no matter what result you've got, no matter any magic pill or any of those things, if it doesn't have consistency, I don't want to really know what it is. I really want to follow people who are consistent at what they say they're going to do. I really want to follow people who are consistent at their craft, because I really believe that's how we master our craft and what we're really good at. And I also, really understand that the person who's consistent at showing up is the person that I want to surround myself with and learn from, because, I know what consistency turns into over a period of time. And those are the people that I really want to hang around, be around, and see myself being able to pick up what they're doing. Now, part two of this is day one doesn't matter, but every day counts. What doesn't matter is, like, there's no special day that we have to start. There's no special day. Like, just do the day. Like, everybody wants to wait till Monday. Everybody wants to wait till, Sunday, or everybody wants to wait till the first of the year. Day one doesn't matter. What matters is, like, every single day that you are showing up, those are the days that count. And the days that count are the ones where you show up. You may not feel your best, which is going to get into another lesson. You may not feel like you want to do it, but at the end of the day one doesn't matter. Every day counts. And so every single day that you end up showing up, you may not see the result of it right away, but over a period of time, you're going to see the compound effect of you showing up every single day. And all of a sudden you're going to be like, how the heck did I get here? And so getting started on that day one doesn't really matter. It's just like, get started, and let's worry about, your day one and day 31. And just look at, okay, what's the next day, or what do I got to get done today? The other thing is, you will not always see the immediate impact of the work that you're doing, but over time, you'll see the massive transformation. And so this kind of goes back to, being consistent. This goes back to counting every day. You won't always see the immediate results. I mean, I could think of so many times where I'm like, man, I don't even know if I'm really getting a result. I don't know if I'm, changing. And then I would look back and be like, well, let's just look at the facts. 2 years ago, we had just moved here from Southern California. Literally that 2 years ago feels like 10 years ago. We had just moved here. My youngest daughter wasn't even in like pre-K yet. My son was in 6th grade. He was going to a different school. We actually lived in a different neighborhood. And so if I really look back, I hadn't even really launched Habit-Based Lifestyle, exactly like the coaching program. I launched the podcast. I came out with my book, Man in the Mirror, but I hadn't even really signed up my first coaching client. And so when I look back, I'm like, man, so much has changed in 2 years. And so I didn't see the immediate impact, the immediate results I had. But over time, when I look back, I see this massive transformation. And that's what work looks like oftentimes, is like, we may not see, this statue being built where every single day we're taking a chisel to this statue and we're molding this, and we're actually like, knocking everything away on it so that we can mold it to the ideal thing of what we want it to look like. And so when I see that, I'm like, man, now look at what habit-based lifestyle has become. Now look at, it's still not where, maybe like, hey, I really see it as the vision, but it's halfway to where I've seen the vision of it. It could possibly be and will be. And it's really cool to see that now come to fruit. And that's a lot like results is you don't see the immediate results, but you have people that are like, man, look how much you've changed. Look how much you've grown. Look how many podcasts you've done. It's almost mind blowing to look back and see the transformation. The next lesson is number 4. You will not always feel like doing it, but do it anyway. So if I really thought about this lesson is like, I can't tell you how many times I didn't feel like doing my podcast. I can't tell you how many times even just getting on today. I can remember being in a rhythm for a long time where I was like, man, just bang, bang, bang. And it was like, no resistance whatsoever to where like, I'm literally having resistance just getting on here today. Not because I don't want to do it, but just because I'm like, man, like, what am I going to talk about? I've talked about like all 275 of my things. Now I got to come up with more. But what's crazy is to look back at some of the episodes and being like, man, we're just talking about entitlement, or we're talking about, power. We're talking about consistency. We're talking about literally anything you could think of, we are talking about. But I can tell you that I didn't always feel like doing the podcast. In fact, probably 50-60% of the time I was like, I don't really want to do it, but I would do it anyway. And when I look back, I'm like, man, that's so cool to be like, hey, I've exercised this discipline to consistently do something, even though I didn't feel like doing it. I still did it anyways. And that's a very powerful thing that you can use. Imagine, not feeling like working out, but you go every single day anyways. And then at the end of that, you see the results and the transformation you've had. And you're like, okay, well, what if I would have given up after, a couple trips, or what if I would have given up after a few? I wouldn't be here today. The other thing is number 5 is learn to tune the voice of reason out. So we have, really 2 voices. There's a voice that says, hey, we shouldn't be doing this. No one's going to listen. No one wants to hear you. And then we have this other voice that's like, you know what? Like I set you up. I called you to do this. And so one is the voice of reason. It gives us, this directive of why we shouldn't do it, why, we don't feel like good enough to do it. And then there's this voice of God that's like, listen, I called you to do this thing. I called you to lead people, and you're going to have to get uncomfortable in doing that. And that means that you're going to have to grow over these next 2 years to get comfortable being on camera, speaking in front of, people and other things. And it's going to really help you with your message. It's going to really help you with, what I've called you to do. And that's the true power in that. And so I really believe we have, this voice of reason that tries to say, well, maybe you weren't called. Maybe that's just something that you made up in your own mind. But the voice of reason usually tells us why we shouldn't be doing something. The voice of God tells us, hey, I've called you to do this thing. It's time for you to do this. And I think about, man, if I would have listened to that voice, I would have quit after the first 5 episodes, because I literally was like, okay, I have every reason not to do this. Like, I don't even have a freaking audience. And here I am thinking people are going to listen. And to where we are now, fast forward, I don't even care anymore. If no one listens to this, or one person listens to this, the reality of it is I'm listening. God's listening, and those are the things that really matter the most. Hopefully my wife listens still once in a while, but I think the cool thing in that is like, hey, I'm listening, and what I'm starting to tune in and listen, I know that there's a valuable message there, and I know that there's some truth behind what I'm saying, especially if I'm listening to my own stuff. Now, the final lesson of this is like, listen, share your story. Regardless if you believe your story's worthy, not worthy, if it's, you haven't had enough, maybe you don't feel like you've been through enough to share your story. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you begin to share your story, share your message, share your mission, even if you don't think you're qualified. And I will always say, like, listen, there's been so many times where I didn't feel like I was qualified to share a message, share my story, share my mission. But when I did, I always felt better. I always felt like it was kind of like a cleanse. It was like you're taking away a layer of truth and getting to a deeper truth. And that's what I really believe sharing your story, sharing your message, and sharing your message is, or sharing your mission is stripping away a layer of truth to find a deeper truth. And inside of that, we get to peel back a layer at a time. So you could think of, okay, well, I've done a lot of work on myself, but there's obviously endless amounts of work that I could do. Let's just say I peeled back 275 layers of an onion. I still have, an endless amount of layers to go. But the cool thing is I've peeled back 275 of them. And so in doing that, I've really learned that the people that need to hear your message, hear your mission, hear your story will listen. The people that won't, they won't. The people that, want to criticize you, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what are they really criticizing? If you're the one showing up, doing this in this capacity, like, they have nothing to criticize. And I always found people that the people who are criticizing the most, they're probably not even doing a podcast. The people criticizing the most probably need your help the most also. So don't worry about it. Like, at the end of the day, share your story, because sharing your story is like peeling back one layer. Sharing your message is like peeling back one layer. Sharing your mission and getting other people in alignment with that is a very powerful way for you to begin to move forward. And so, I think this is a great place for us to go through these 6 lessons and really learn from these. Like, go back, listen to them, because these are all powerful individual things. I could probably do episodes on each one individually, and I think I actually might going forward, because these kind of give me a new, refreshing outlook on where we're going in 2021. I'm definitely looking at some amazing people I'm going to bring on, interview, and really dive into. And this year, my goal is to really dive into more things that I'm interested in learning about and being able to share my experience and going through that also, so that I can, hopefully impact you to do the same. If you guys are looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where we will be talking about habits. We'll be talking about living to your full potential. We'll be talking about business habits, all of those things. Go to my Facebook group, click the link inside the comments. It'll send you directly in there. We'd love to have you in there. Every single week, I'm doing a show called The Coach's Corner, which you guys hear the replays on this, and we'd love to have you in there. Until next episode, have a great day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse